Welcome to uBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to COVID terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
COVID terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the reestablishment of a caliphate. World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said, "A virus is more powerful in creating political, economic, and social upheaval than any terrorist attack. Can have more powerful consequences than any terrorist action."
COVID terror. Chapter 10.
Huiranhal Zhongnanhai. Beijing, China. January 23, 2020. Chinese President Xi Jinping speak before reporters of international media organizations at the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the Forbidden City. This statement was meant to allay the doubts of the people to his leadership, and show global leaders that he is in control of the situation. He was reminded of the words by Zhou Nanshan, one of the heroes in China's fight against the severe acute respiratory syndrome disease in 2003, that SARS forced the whole country to pay attention to the livelihood of the people. "We've made huge progress, but our footsteps are slow, especially in terms of healthcare. Xi will show the world how he will be more proactive and decisive, to lead his country to dominance during a health emergency." With the SARS-CoV-2 spreading rapidly across China, the president is facing a major test of how he can handle this crisis, especially in the country's healthcare system's ability to react to a new deadly pathogen, and crucially, how the central government handles the developing emergency. Philippe Teng of Newsweek raised his hand and asked Xi, "Sir, how true is the report that a top brass of the PLA was involved in the experimentation of a virus that has gone wrong?" The Chinese leader turned to the direction of the correspondent. Seldom does anyone from the media would dare to ask questions about irregularities in the People's Liberation Army. Such report is unfounded. The so-called general was dismissed from service due to corruption, and has recently been neutralized of his illegal activities. She quickly added, "No one in the PLA is engaged in any inappropriate scientific endeavor that will endanger our people." The raid at the Gu Imperial Palace in Henan province has been classified, and only top members of the Politburo are aware of the operation. In fact, even the story of a rogue laboratory was kept top secret. Looking straight at the assembled foreign media, he pronounced China's health policies with full confidence. "We have a crisis at hand. This is not the time for pointing out the dirt on our fellow's face, as we need to clean first our own." This alludes to the earlier report that Zhou Xianwang, the mayor of Wuhan, had seemingly tried to put off the burden away from his shoulders.
In an interview with state broadcaster CCTV, Zhou was asked whether the government had reacted too slowly to the spread of the virus, and if timely information had been shared among healthcare officials and medical workers. The media was inquisitive if hospital staff were getting infected. The mayor was grilled on allowing a mass gathering to go ahead in the midst of the outbreak, as well as on the delayed cancellation of public events for the Lunar New Year. Mayor Zhou, the 57-year-old local executive of the Hubei provincial capital, and who serves also as deputy party committee secretary, can feel the pressure over the government's response to the outbreak. He admitted that the disease prevention efforts of the city fell short. From the perspective of continued understanding of the situation, it is only at this time that everyone realizes it is so dangerous. This statement led to massive online bashing for him to resign. Further justifying the earlier blunder, he added, "If we knew at first from the virus spread that it would be so serious, Finding effective control and prevention methods of course would be good, but the problem is usually, we cannot realize the severity from the outset.
After President Xi's pronouncements, all state apparatuses of China cracked to motion, with everyone exerting efforts to control the virus in a national scale. The Ministry of Health ordered their respective units for the highest level response, which is typically being invoked to tackle outbreaks of plague or cholera. As expected, the Xinhua News Agency and other media organizations controlled by the state urged the government for greater transparency, and lauded the central government's quick response. They noted the works of Chinese scientists and doctors, who quickly released the virus genome to research institutions, in order to aid the work of other researchers in coming up with a vaccine to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. By the fourth week of January, Wuhan, with its 11 million people, was subjected to a partial quarantine, with public transport temporarily suspended. Other provinces followed suit. In effect, almost the entire central region of China were in lockdown, to contain the spread of the coronavirus disease. Based in Beijing, the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention is an independent agency of the National Health Commission. According to its website, the CCDC works to protect public health and safety by providing information to enhance health decisions, and it promotes health through partnerships with provincial health departments and other organizations. It focuses national attention on developing and applying disease prevention and control, especially with infectious diseases, environmental health, occupational safety and health promotion, prevention and education activities designed to improve the health of the people. Led by Chinese President Xi Jinping and Hudiji Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the delegation visited CCDC's biosafety laboratory. With international media focused on their every move, the two leaders seem inspired and energized. Let us not attract attention to ourselves. As much as possible, avoid making comments. Director Zhou Meng cautioned Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar through a text message. The director of Wuhan Institute of Virology accompanied the group on the way to the nation's capital city. Of course, this is just a BSL-3 unit. It does not possess our latest wizardry in WIV. On hindsight, Gwen does not want to open a discussion on WIV, where this crisis started in the first place. In a press conference, the delegation discussed active surveillance processes, temperature screening, and strict enforcement of health protocols at airports and other points of entry. Minister Ma Xiaoyi emphasized while looking at the cadre of top leadership, there is a need to legislate higher budget for the improvement of laboratory facilities in the country. Likewise, there has to be standardization of infection prevention and control measures at hospitals and its associated fever clinics. He looked at the assembled media. Information from authorities must be continually broadcasted, so that our people must be knowledgeable on what to do, in case they are contracted by the virus. To our comrades in the medical front lines, the party will take care of your safety all the time. Our people is of primordial concern to us. The country's leadership had deployed appropriate number of RT-PCR test kits to detect the virus. The director of National Health Commission glanced briefly at President Xi, and was rewarded with a nod of approval. Gwen smiled to herself. This is a typical media briefing in China, when a designated government official will pronounce official policies and well-screened information and supporting data, and the media are expected to simply take note of the words and minimize questions. While on their way back to Wuhan, Director Zhou showed Gwen a memorandum from the Ministry of Health. Officially signed by a top MOH official, the WIV has been ordered to coordinate with the World Health Organization to analyze data, provide advice, coordinate with partners, help countries prepare, increase supplies and manage expert networks. The director asked her, "Beijing is probably testing us. Do you think it's our penalty of mishandling previous research activities?" "I don't think so. They still recognize WIV as a primary research institution in China. Besides, we won't be recommended for engagements with WHO if they have doubts in our abilities. Gwen answered wryly. The Chinese people are inherently altruistic, when it comes to your job. They don't look back at your previous faults, so long as you deliver what is expected from you. As she browsed through the WHO website, Gwen came across a post of the Director General about his recent visit to China, and the meeting with President Xi Jinping, Minister of Health Ma Xiaoyi and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi. Our discussions focused on continued collaboration on containment measures in Wuhan, public health measures in other cities and provinces, conducting further studies on the severity and transmissibility of the virus, and sharing data and biological material. China identified the pathogen in record time and shared it immediately, which led to the rapid development of diagnostic tools. They are completely committed to transparency, both internally and externally. And they have agreed to work with other countries who need their support. President Xi and I agreed that WHO will lead a team of international experts, to visit China as soon as possible, to work with the government on increasing the understanding of the outbreak, to guide global response efforts. WHO is monitoring this outbreak every moment of every day. We share the concern of many people, who are worried for their own health and that of their friends and family. The emergence of any new pathogen with the potential to cause severe illness and death, is of grave concern, and must be taken with the utmost seriousness. We are in the world's headlines. Gwen commented as she saw similar stories in every leading online news sites. At least, China can expect help from the international community, if it comes to worst. The WIV and our team will definitely be in the thick of things. From now on, we should always be careful in our works and in our words. The face of Director Zhou is very serious, as he showed her a medical treatise that she gave him, before they left for Beijing. I will have to subject to a peer review your paper, suggesting that a human-to-human transmission of the virus, is taking place in Wuhan. Of course, I expect that, Director. Besides, it's always good to involve other experts, when it comes to theorizing and trying to sway certain government health policy. Peer review process in research is a must, and Gwen understood it very well. Despite your detailed epidemiological investigation from collected data, with the deployment of the new test kits, there is still a need for further analysis of additional related data, to understand the full extent of the human-to-human transmission. Director Zhou resolved to be extra vigilant. Whatever they will come up with in WIV, will become a policy paper that China will be using to request for support from international bodies. He was informed verbally by the WHO Director General, that the UN Health Agency will declare the outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern. In case there will be a widespread human-to-human transmission involving other countries, then the 2019 nCoV will be categorized as a pandemic. The freezing Yangtze River seems like a crystal strip, in a foggy late January afternoon. Not a single boat could be seen cruising the Wuhan tributary of Asia's longest river. A structural icon of the city, the Wuhan Changjiang Daiqiao is eerily deserted. According to a TV commentary, since its inauguration in September 1957, this is the first time that the double-deck road and rail bridge across the Yangtze River saw an absence of vehicles on its surface. The windswept and closed Shanghai-Wuhan Expressway is a picture of static gray ribbons as seen from a surveillance drone above. The city of 11 million people had become a ghost town. The streets were deserted, as everybody were ordered by authorities to remain indoors. The few remaining passers-by are either medical personnel and hospital staff, or members of the People's Armed Police. Sporting full battle dress and weapons with live ammunitions, the latter is a paramilitary organization primarily responsible for internal security, riot control, anti-terrorism, disaster response, law enforcement, and maritime rights protection, as well as providing support to the PLA Ground Force during wartime. You must follow the regulations. We are in a state of emergency. Gwen was admonished by a PAP trooper in one of the checkpoints. The WIV identification card and the authorization letter from the Ministry of Health saved her from being arrested. She was able to requisition from the laboratory motor pool, a maroon Chang'an CS75. Parking in front of the Huanan seafood market, she carefully zipped her parka, a large windproof jacket with a hood, designed to be worn in cold weather. Alighting from the car, she goes straight to the direction of the shack of the pangolin vendor. The more than 1,000 tenants closed their shops. Except for some stray dogs, the entire complex is uninhabited. She walked hurriedly along the numerous vacated stalls. As she rounded a corner, she sensed that somebody is following her. But when she looked back, the alley is empty. Maybe, her own shadow made by the fading winter light, is playing her mind. She was taken aback when the corrugated sheet gate opened with a slight push. Empty animal cages, its exotic occupants gone, are all that remained in the compound. She called for the vendor. No one answered. The nearest house with some lights is about 200 meters, partially screened by closed stores in the 50,000 square meters expanse of the market. The door is ajar. Gwen went inside a spooky room, where some sort of struggle had taken place, with almost everything thrown on the floor. When her eyes got accustomed to the dark, she saw something bright in a corner. She approached to what looked like crumpled clothes. She pushed it sideways and shrieked in horror. Staring at her is the vendor with a deep slit in his neck. She ran outside, but before reaching the door, something hit her abdomen. She passed out. What were you doing in the market? A woman's face came into focus. Gwen saw that she's securely strapped by a seat belt in a passenger seat. Have a drink. The woman placed in her hand a bottled water. We are inside your car near the laboratory. Through the thick fog, Gwen could see the outline of a front gate. They are parked in a roadside leading to WIV's administration building. Feeling relieved, she drank slowly the cold mineral water. I am Lichi Lu. We've met before in Henan at the Gu Imperial Palace. I was one of the snow leopards in charge of protecting your back. Gwen could now picture the sexy ladies clad in military uniform with long barrel weapons. They seemed to be enjoying the spectacle, every time someone falls on the compound when they fire. Again, why did you enter the market compound? Lichi insisted. Finding her voice, Gwen tried to explain. I think you're aware that I'm a scientist of WIV. I wanted to validate by interview, on how the virus which caused this health emergency, was transmitted from animal to human. The sniper is an intelligent and deadly secret agent of the MSS. She's been briefed of the current situation in Wuhan. What's the connection of your study to a particular vendor? I saw in a medical bulletin, that the first confirmed patient of viral infection was the vendor of exotic animal residing in that shack. Gwen shivered involuntarily of the repulsive and horrific sight. The bright color she saw was blood flowing freely from the man's neck. I wanted to inquire from him on some clarification, that I can use for a technical report that the Ministry of Health asked from me. Well, you can't validate any more your research. It seems that the vendor met a bloody end. Starting the car engine to initiate the heater, Lichi appraised her what happened. Don't be surprised, but I've been ordered by my superior to keep a surveillance on you, since the start of the lockdown. We received an intelligence report that an associate of General Gu is on the loose, to eliminate those identified to have been knowledgeable about the sale of the pangolin. But why do I have to be dragged into this mess? Although she was able to witness a deadly battle in Henan, but she can't think of any reason to get involved in a violent situation. You were literally dragged. Lichi managed a smile. What do you mean? Her heart skipped a beat out of fear. Her stomach is still aching due to trauma, caused by a hard object that hit her. When I arrived at the scene, I saw you unconscious and being pulled to a waiting car. I shot the man and missed, as I cannot make a good aim because of the dark, and out of caution also that you might be hit. The man sensed my presence, and he immediately jumped into his car and sped away, leaving you crumpled on the ground. I cannot make out the plate number of that black Land Cruiser. As early as first week of December last year, we already have the complete genome sequence of SARS-CoV-2 from patient 0 in Wuhan, China. Dr. Hubert Manville of Institut Pasteur's Structural Virology Unit announced before a panel of WHO representatives, scientists, and medical experts. But prior to that, we have in our databank a complete genome sequence of a virus that an IP research fellow Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar discovered through a Black Death sample she gathered from Siena, Italy in 2018. He paused for effect and re-engaged the audience. You may call it coincidence, but if you study further the strain we call virus X, it can be noticed that said submicroscopic infectious agent revealed a stark resemblance with the current virus that is always the main content of the news every day. The scientific community was intrigued. Dr. Manville is a respected scientist with a nomination for the Nobel Prize in Physiology to his credit. His treatises and medical opinions are valued by researchers worldwide. Thus, the reported 2019 nCoV disease is not new to us. We know what it is, and hopefully we'll be able to find its cure. He extended his palm to Gwen for recognition of the assembled experts. Dr. Del Pilar was able to isolate the causative agent of the 2019 nCoV using Vero cells from the oropharyngeal swab of a patient that was confirmed to be the first case of the new disease. The IP senior scientist felt proud of his protege. Hubert turned to Gwen for the details. She obliged by explaining, as a research collaborator of Wuhan Institute of Virology, a sample was sent to me for confirmatory study. It was obtained using a UTM kit containing 1 ml of VTM on day 7 of the patient's illness. Patient 0 was a 55-year-old vendor of wildlife animals at the Huanan seafood market who initially complained of feeling ill after eating a pangolin meat. Consequently, further clinical tests revealed that the man was positive of the coronavirus and experienced nasal congestion, cough, and sputum. His temperature reached as high as 38.9 degrees Celsius, and his fever lasted for 10 days. She looked at Hubert for help in case some peers will ask for technical description. I was able to extract the ribonucleic acid from the Wuhan sample. After doing a phylogenetic analysis of the whole genome sequence, I found out that it's a coronavirus, which clustered around virus X, a novel strain which I reported and published late last year. Virus X is a subspecie of HCoV-229E, which manifests certain characteristics that has zoonotic origins, and with close genetic similarity to bat coronaviruses. A microbiologist from Johns Hopkins University raised a question. How does it relate to the crisis in China? Gwen looked at him and smiled. Virus X is an enveloped positive sense single-stranded RNA virus that enters its host cell by binding to the angiotensin-converting enzyme 2 receptor. She expounded her point, based on our studies in WIV, and subsequent confirmatory tests here in IP and at NIID in Japan. The SARS-CoV-2 of the 2019 nCoV disease that originated in China, exhibits similar strain with that of virus X. A technician of the institute flashed on screen, an unintelligible set of scribbles and colors. Using his laser pointer, Dr. Manville described the figure. What you see is the whole genome sequence of the 2019 nCoV coronavirus. It's a result of an assay we did to a nasopharyngeal specimen, taken by a healthcare provider early this week from suspected cases residing in Paris. Health authorities in France warned about an outbreak of apparently viral pneumonia of unknown etiology, which emerged in the city of Wuhan, China. After subjecting the specimens to molecular testing, by means of a real-time reverse transcriptase, polymerase chain reaction, RT-PCR, tests for 2019 nCoV nucleic acid, the samples were found to be positive with the novel coronavirus. The screen shows a new image. It's a higher resolution view of the previous one. Hubert signaled Gwen to do the explaining. This is a close-up on the 2019 ANCOV sequence. I'm sure that everyone here is familiar with how a genetic code looks like. Dr. Del Pilar is in her own element. An experienced geneticist like her can explain upside down the set of rules used by living cells to translate information, encoded within genetic material, into proteins. It seems that all those with scholarly outlook nod their heads in agreement. She moved on for more discussions. When target his pointer to a randomized series of ACGT letters in coded colors. Just as a refresher, so that we will have a common context in understanding this image. She saw that everyone is in full attention to what she's saying. A genetic code pertains to the way that the 4 bases of the deoxyribonucleic acid, the A, C, G, and T, are strung together, in a way that the cellular machinery, the ribosome, can read them and turn them into a protein. Acknowledging the IP scientists in the hall, Gwen illustrated further the image. The virus was sequenced with our mutualized platform for microbiology. You may understand that the P2M performs genome sequencing on bacterial, viral, fungal, and parasite strains received by national reference centers and WHO collaborating centers, for the purpose of infectious disease surveillance. My colleagues launched the process of sequencing the viral genome, based on the samples in record time. We immediately performed the data analysis and results corroboration with counter-analysis, so that the whole sequence was confirmed in a matter of 3 days. She radiated as everyone clapped their hands, of the remarkable feat of the scientists at Institut Pasteur. Hubert took over when the noise died down. With this result, how will it help us in our fight against this menacing virus? According to Dr. Vincent Inouye, around 20 other sequences of the novel coronavirus genome have been obtained worldwide, and if we compare them with ours, we can see that they are all very close. There is not much diversity in the viruses analyzed, which suggests that coronavirus 2019 ANCOV did not need to mutate in order to adapt and spread. Showing a vector diagram, Hubert emphasized a gloomy scenario, going back to our collective assay of the 2019 ANCOV in France. The sequences were identical in all our samples. It could mean that one member may have contaminated the other, as the virus is the same. That final statement of the IP scientist worried everyone. By considering the reported situations of the patients and their medical conditions, the analysis pointed to an undeniable conclusion: the virus is very capable of human-to-human transmission. The only glimmer of light for the scientists and medical experts in the assembly is that their sector, irrespective of nationalities and political affiliation, did the right thing of working together with urgency. It's understood by everyone that genome sequencing increases the sensitivity threshold for outbreak detection. The early identification of the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak enabled epidemiologists to get to work immediately, to determine the virus etiology and its original location, so that the affected government and health authorities can facilitate the implementation of appropriate policies, and coordinate the suitable responses of the people in this kind of crisis. The French capital is globally known as the City of Love and Romance. It is a major European metropolis, and a global center for art, fashion, gastronomy, and culture. Early February in Paris is cold and bears the end of the winter. There isn't a lot of snow or rain, but you can expect a downpour or slushy snow once in a while. For a cosmopolitan tourist, the weather is not a hindrance in drenching yourself with the glamorous and very lively atmosphere. A foreign resident like Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar could find the place quite ordinary, if not of the challenges that her work at the Institut Pasteur subjected her into. Her lodging at the Appartement Saint-Et-Marais along 10 Quai Henry IV, is a reserved yet elegant room overlooking the Seine. But it's not the romantic river, nor the very generous proprietaire, that enforces her attachment to the place. In walking distance right across the river through Pont de Sully, is Sorbonne University Pierre and Marie Curie campus. Also known as Paris 6, it is a public research university, having a beautiful campus and famous professors. As an IP fellow, Gwen was given an access pass to the university's extensive learning commons. So that most of the time, when she got an early off from the institute, she would loiter around the campus, feeling rejuvenated and free with the calming ambience of the academic community. Still in her early 40s, she could take in the lingo of the millennials and enjoy their juvenile gimmicks. When the weather is fine, there are times that she would just sit on a bench, at the adjacent Jardin de l'École de Botanique with her favorite books, or watch from her tablet some blockbuster movies by video streaming in HBO, Netflix, or YouTube TV. A newspaper at the center table caught her attention. The Agence France-Presse ran a banner headline of the WHO declaration, on the 2019 nCoV outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus stated that, the main reason for this declaration, is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries. Our greatest concern, is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems, and which are ill-prepared to deal with it. The International Health Regulations, Emergency Committee, defines a PHEIC, as an extraordinary event which is determined to constitute a public health risk to other states, through the international spread of disease, and to potentially require a coordinated international response, formulated. When a situation arises that is serious, sudden, unusual, or unexpected, which carries implications for public health beyond the affected state's national border, and may require immediate international action. Several media outlets reported, that by the time the PHEIC was declared, there were 7,818 cases confirmed globally, affecting 19 countries in 5 WHO regions. Guinea's landlady knocked and entered the room. She brought in a platter a mix of the famous baguette, pain au chocolat, and pastries that both Parisians and tourists craved for. "Madam, I heard you just came in. Here, try this one." The amiable Audrey Deneuve handed her the delicacies. "Merci beaucoup," Gwen expressed her gratitude. Every time she checked into this apartment, Madame Deneuve had something tasty for her. On her part, she would sometimes prepare and exchange with her some famous Filipino dishes, like quinoa, raw fish salad, sinigang, sour meat stew, an imported lechon, roasted suckling pig, and halo-halo, the best Filipino dessert. "I saw you in Euronews a while ago. The commentator said that you discovered last year virus X, the one that is similar to the coronavirus, that causes this present health problem. Is that true?" "That's right. In the course of researching for my dissertation, I accidentally uncovered in Italy a specimen from a Black Death victim, which is not listed in the catalogue of known viruses." "That's wonderful, dear," Audrey exclaimed. "I always appreciate the Jen's intelligence. My late husband was a professor at the l'Université de Recherche Parasciences et Lettres, before his assignment in the Ministère de l'Éducation nationale." A look of sadness can be seen in her eyes. Gwen was invited one time to the landlady's room. In a picture framed by a bookshelf, she saw a good-looking man posing with Audrey, in the beach of French Riviera. The husband did not survive a car accident, which ushered the solitary life of this charming and very kind landlady. "I'm just curious. Why did the WHO declare a public health emergency? It causes a lot of worries. It's usual for the United Nations to do. The health agency is concerned of the growing number of cases in China, and an increase in the number of countries being impacted by the virus." Gwen replied while enjoying the sweetness of the chocolate. "I'm asking that because my niece, a student in Yonsei University, had met a lot of difficulties in processing her visa back to France. Up to now, she is stranded at Gimpo International Airport." Through Messenger, Aubrey's niece related that they were required with additional documents, such as health certificates and a clearance from the police and the country's health agency. According to the airport bulletin, until such time that the authorities in Seoul will give the go signal, their flight will remain grounded. It's a common problem faced by travelers, not just in Korea, but in many countries in the world. Being new to this health crisis, some governments resort to irrational policies and arbitrary requirements. Gwen understood that by declaring the coronavirus as a PHEIC, it will allow the WHO to better coordinate the international response, and hold nations to account if they overstep the UN standards pertaining to travel, trade, quarantine or screening. When the landlady left the room, Gwen opened her laptop and went online. A live broadcast by UN Web TV channel features an ongoing meeting of health ministers from member countries at the WHO headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. We would like to announce the formulation of a strategic preparedness and response plan for the 2019 nCoV. The Deputy Director General read from a prepared note for the benefit of media representatives. Showing a paper with a WHO letterhead and several signatures, he continued. The international community drafted, and will cause for its approval by the United Nations this document, which is basically a strategic preparedness and response plan. Several cameras clicked while camcorders zoom in the presented text. The SPRP outlines the public health measures that the international community stands ready to provide, to support all countries to prepare for and respond to the 2019 nCoV disease. Gwen recalled that in an exclusive meeting in Beijing, the SPRP was one of the items that WHO and Chinese officials discussed. It was mentioned that the international community through the UN asked for financial support to help protect states with weaker health systems. Based on computations by the DG Secretariat, the budget would be about $675 million, as an initial fund to finance the various projects and activities of the WHO in many countries, to effectively counter the coronavirus disease. We now have a name for the disease. COVID-19. The WHO Director General made the announcement on the name of the SARS-CoV-2 disease, that does not refer to a geographical location, an animal, an individual, or group of people, and which is also pronounceable and related to the disease. It was previously known as 2019 novel coronavirus or the 2019 nCoV. Having a name matters, to prevent the use of other names that can be inaccurate or stigmatizing. It also gives us a standard format to use for any future coronavirus outbreaks. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus clarified. Today, we have also activated a UN crisis management team, to be led by Dr. Mike Ryan. This will help WHO focus on the health response, while the other agencies can bring their expertise to bear on the wider social, economic and developmental implications of the outbreak, so we are all working to our strengths. Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar adjusted the volume on TV, as she avidly partake a slice of chocolate and raspberry cake. CNN Geneva allotted a whole segment for this proclamation of the WHO chief. In the last few weeks, the man seems to be enjoying the limelight. The development of vaccines and therapeutics is one important part of the research agenda, but it is only one part. They will take time to develop, but in the meantime, we are not defenseless. There are many basic public health interventions that are available to us now, and which can prevent infections now. A graphical animation filled the screen, as the voice of Dr. Ghebreyesus continued. It's when each and every individual becomes part of the containment strategy, that we can succeed. That's why reaching out to the public directly, and telling them the precautions they should take. Clean your hands regularly, either with alcohol-based rub or soap and water. Keep your distance from someone who is coughing or sneezing. And when you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth and nose with a tissue or your elbow. Gwen went back to the executive boardroom of the WHO headquarters. She was invited to the Global Research and Innovation Forum, towards a research roadmap, along with leading scientists as well as public health agencies, ministries of health and research funders pursuing COVID-19 critical research, and the development of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, AMO, and other innovations. The forum intends to enable identification of key knowledge gaps, and research priorities, and thereby accelerate the generation of critical scientific information, and the most needed medical products to contribute to the control of the COVID-19 emergency. Browsing through the program, she learned that this activity is the operationalization of the WHO R&D blueprint. The WHO R&D blueprint is a global strategy and preparedness plan that allows the rapid activation of R&D activities during epidemics. Its aim is to fast-track the availability of effective tests, vaccines, and medicines that can be used to save lives and avert large-scale crises. The global imperative for research is to maintain a high-level discussion platform, which enables consensus on strategic directions, nurtures scientific collaborations and supports optimal and rapid research to address crucial gaps, without duplication of efforts. Understanding the disease, its reservoirs, its transmission, its clinical severity and developing effective countermeasures is critical, for the control of the outbreak, the reduction of related mortality, and minimization of economic impact. As a research fellow affiliated with Institut Pasteur and that of Wuhan Institute of Virology, Gwen was designated as one of the rapporteurs in the thematic area, Virus, Natural History and Transmission and Diagnostics. The discussion on her study with the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan was totally new to the assembly. She went on talking of the probable pangolin to human transmission, omitting of course the terrorist angle. Her experiments on extracting the genetic code of SARS-CoV-2, and referencing it with the virus that she discovered in Italy, was openly lauded by scientists and medical experts.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.